that if he took it over, because at first he just bought a little bit of shares. But anyways, back then, I said if he takes it over, he's going to get in. He's going to get in for about 90 days. He's going to be a bull in a china shop and wreck the place. He'll be the bad guy, because only Elon Musk's brand can take that. He'll wreck the place. He'll take all the grief, and then he'll exit and put a peacekeeper CEO in to rebuild. And like you've said, then that person's going to be strapped with horrible debt and the company will fail. And I don't disagree. But I think, when he put a poll out there asking if he should leave or not, he's already been thinking this. He said it in November. I'm sorry. He didn't say it a few months ago. He said in November in an interview that he's going to step down.
The whole poll thing. As an edgelord himself, do you know why I don't put polls up anymore for the show? It's what happens is basically every troll in the universe just picks the most extreme or ironic choice you put in there, right? And if you don't put something funny in, they don't do the poll. So,
you know how I found out about this poll? I didn't find out about it on Twitter. It was all over Reddit, and it was all over Hacker News, and everybody was organizing to go vote yes to leave. It was all over the internet, people organizing. So, of course, he brought in tons of people, and maybe that's his point. Maybe he's just trying to drive traffic, but I doubt it. I think it's so funny because everyone has really gotten a little bit of ED over this, a little Elon derangement.
I thought you were saying erectile dysfunction. I was like, what?
Yeah, you see what I did there? Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. This is a litmus test of if you get caught up in this hyperbolic crowd cycles that sweep across social media. Like, you've seen our inbox. You've seen what our inbox looks like.
I've seen our inbox.
People are so triggered by me even suggesting that some of the things he does have logic behind it, and the fact that people can see the things that he's built and the companies he runs, but also think that he has no logic and no intelligence at all. That's very hilarious to me. I think he's admitted to it. He's got Asperger's. I think he probably indulges in substances. We've seen pictures that seem to imply at least cannabis and alcohol. And I bet medications as well.
The bad mix.
I think he's not getting enough sleep. I think he's probably got one of those kind of brains that moves pretty quick. So he goes from 0 to 100 on something really quickly. And, it moves quicker than his censorship components do. And all those things are bad qualities that do not... And I think he's completely detached from reality and the average person. I think he kind of lives in this idealistic version of what the world should be. And I think all of those things make him a bad leader for Twitter. However, I think all of those things made him perhaps the only person that could go in there and clean up this company. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this Twitter auction that's going on as we record. Have you seen the fact that there's several $30,000 cappuccino machines? Each chair is a $1,200 chair that they're now selling for $80.
What?
They've got 65-inch, they've got a stack of 65-inch plasma screens. I mean, if you just look at the auction that's going on from their San Francisco.
Wow, this is the stuff they had in their office. Well, no wonder they...
Yes.
Come on.
I think it tells the entire story when you just look at the stuff in the Twitter auction and you see how unbelievably opulent it all was. And I think there's very few people that, especially if you look at the Twitter files and you see the kind of censorship and moderation pressure from different directions that this company was under and the choices that they had to make, there's very few people that could do the job. And now he does need to get out of there because he's not the right person to run the company. And the Tesla shareholders are punishing him for it. Who knows where it's going to be by the time this episode goes out, though. He's in a bad spot. He never should have done it. But it is what it is, It's like I said, he's going to go in there. Oh, and then one last point. One last point, if I could. I played this clip back in April, and I'm going to play it again for you today.
Twitter has become kind of the de facto town square. It's just really important that people have both the reality and the perception that they are able to speak freely within the bounds of the law. So one of the things that I believe Twitter should do is open source the algorithm.
Now, that's my beef. He's never open sourced that algorithm. But second of all, that doesn't sound like somebody who was going to do absolute free speech to me. Now, I don't know if you agree with where his lines are at, but that was back in April of this year. And that didn't sound like somebody who was going to go in and institute absolute free speech on the platform. It sounded like somebody who was willing to be argued with on what is reasonable speech and what should be censored by the law. That's not absolutism. And people have just gotten this bug up their bonnet about it. And it's just so funny to watch everybody just go into Well, ED mode.
So I think what happened is, right, playing a little devil's advocate, I mean he's a person, right? I think people act like he's this, like, god, emperor, you know, automaton, whatever. He's also a dude who, up until he did this, could walk into any room and basically be, you know, lauded with acclaim, right? Praise, everybody, blah, blah, blah. Fast cars, fast women, lots of money, right? The man was living the dream. Now he kind of blew himself up a little bit with this.
I agree, yeah.
I mean, he really, I can't even imagine what this has done to kind of other areas of his life, right?
But I mean, like, how rich do you got to be? Maybe he just doesn't care. He's got FU money.
I feel like he does care, right? I feel like at this level that you're always keeping score.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah, I mean, let's see what happens, right? Like, you know what? I've been playing around with Mastodon. I like Mastodon a lot, but Twitter has a lot of traction, and it's definitely got more, particularly as I've been getting more into, you know, tabletop games and things like that, more quote-unquote normies. So that's a thing.
I'm waiting to see if the normies start doing the rage quitting that I see all the tech folks do.
Yeah, but I just don't necessarily think a good use of Twitter is to talk about Twitter.
God. They love talking about Twitter, though. That and Elon.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you hate this guy, I get it. It's funny because I have a similar complaint about most prominent tech blogs now, where they're kind of talking about themselves, like media, all the time now. Like, part of my bacon, this is some bacon out of New York. It's Trump bacon.
Oh, all right. It's funny, you know, I haven't seen that going around as much these days.
Oh, all right. My bacon is, I think with the 2016 election and all the Facebook stuff and Cambridge Analytica, the tech media world kind of had their head explode.
Yeah.
And they did the thing you should never do, which is say never again, right, under any circumstances. Because guess what? When you say never again, you're in this horrible place where you have to do and accept literally anything if you're going to be true to that.
Yeah, and I think it kind of justifies a lot of actions.
Well, it justifies, I just, and maybe it's where we are in the cycle now that we're going into a recession, although lots of people would tell you that's not true. It sure feels like one. Mm-hmm. I think the general kind of tech world has lost its way a little by getting a little too intertwined with the media people. Because it's just a different thing, right? They should be about engineering and invention.
Because everything's become everything. Everybody has a media arm. Every tech platform, even regular companies, they all have media arms now. And I think that's why social media has become this huge, unrelenting influence on that whole space. It's probably we should just move on because, you know, who knows where things are going to be at by this point.
Because we're doing literally the same thing right now.
Yeah, we've probably captured as much of the value as we can for our particular demographic, and now we'll just sit back and see what happens. Tell you what, though, I am bullish on ActivityPub. Hey-o! I feel like that's ActivityPub's the real winner in all of this. Linode.com/coder. That's where you go to get $100 and 60-day credit on a new account, and it's a great way to support the show while you're checking out fast, reliable cloud hosting with the best performance and support in the business. And they're 30 to 50% cheaper than those crazy hyperscalers that want you to build specifically to their platform. You know what I'm talking about. And they're always trying to upsell you. Linode gives you this complete package, and you pick the price and performance that's best for you. They have 11 data centers around the world. They have great features like S3-compatible object storage, cloud firewalls, powerful DNS manager, backups that are easy, transparent, super simple to understand and recover when you need to, like that kind of stuff that really matters. They just check all of the boxes. And if you're trying to build something for your backend, maybe like your workflow, like GitLab, or maybe you want to mess around with a Mastodon instance, and on, they have what they call their app marketplace. It's all free stuff, but they call it their app marketplace, and that lets you deploy things with just a couple of clicks. Like in the case of the Mastodon and GitLab instances, they'll ask you a couple of critical questions that you need to configure that server, just like in a form. You answer those questions, you hit deploy, it's off to the races, and now you've got something going. And then you combine it with like Tailscale or Nebula or just a WireGuard VPN. You could keep it all behind private IPs on a private protected LAN. It's a really powerful combination, and I've been a Linode customer for 3 years, and I'm still really, really happy. Like, just absolutely the best service I've ever had. And guys, I've been racking and stacking, as they say, for 20 years because I'm an old man. Oh, well, actually, just because I started really young, right? That's what it is. I mean, that's what it is. Anyways, I've seen it all. Been there. literally from the very beginning of the industry, just like Linode, and they've been doing this for just about 19 years. And they had to just survive on the merit of their product. And that's why they're willing to offer you $100. So that way you can go try Linode and see what it's really like on your own. No guardrails, no like disabled stuff. Just take that $100 and go try it and really see how it works for you. And they're betting, and I'm betting, you're going to be impressed. And that's why they advertise here on this show, because our audience loves it. So go try it, see what we've been talking about, and support the show. You just go to linode.com/coder. You get that $100. Linode.com/coder. All right, we got a spicy email into the show. Dom says you and I are way off on our take on two-factor authentication. Guys, I'm usually all in with the get off my lawn mentality, but your take on two-factor authentication and its challenges is narrow-minded in my opinion. In this case, using Google Authenticator was a bad idea since the app has only had one update in 2017, one in 2020, and one in 2022. I mean, I'm surprised Google hasn't killed it yet. Username and passwords were enough for the early internet era, but increasingly our daily lives involve the digital realm. With this comes more and more data breaches, account compromises, and our lives being negatively impacted. Now, he says, yes, a strong password's good, and that's something you do need to have, but a two-factor authentication for something like a software as a service account or something like that is absolutely essential. He says, I recommend using Authy if you don't want to think about backups and if you have multiple devices, or Aegis, A-E-G-I-S, for power users. But let's not spread FUD. Embrace the technologies and keep our digital life safe, private, and secure. Oh, and P.S., Mike, congrats on getting hooked.
I think he means 6.
So that is a spicy take because I still don't think we were wrong. I mean, I agree that you can use better tooling.
Yeah, I got that from a lot of people, that like MS Auth is better, and there's a bunch of tools, right? So fair enough. Yeah, we talked a lot about this. I don't know how deep we want to go, but I don't think we were necessarily wrong. I do think Google Authenticator is just a bad choice.
I think for people that are listening to this show, it's a solid recommend. I think you guys can all probably manage it. I hesitate when I think about family members who, maybe their only device is their phone, and if they lost that, because I definitely have family members that just don't even use computers anymore. They're generally the older ones or the younger ones, but they don't use a computer. And if they lost their phone, they wouldn't have another device to install. They'd have to they'd have to go to the store, buy a new phone, and in some cases, maybe they do an iCloud restore. In some cases, I don't know what they do. And so there's that real kind of hesitation I have, because that would really, really screw them up. Like, imagine they're trying to get into their bank account or something like that. I just feel really hesitant still. I want them to use it. I think a solution, maybe besides Authy, maybe for those types of folks, is maybe Bitwarden, because then they could sync it, and install the Bitwarden app on the new device, log in, and if they're a member, they can do their two-factor tokens as well. But it's still just on the edge of recommending it to normies for me, I have to say, unfortunately. I'll just sum it up. We got an email from Remembers Only. Remembers Only says that Apple just needs to admit that containers are a thing. He's not happy with the Docker experience on macOS, and he wonders if we think Apple will make the kernel changes necessary to enable Linux-style containerization or provide some kind of WSL-type layer for developers on macOS in the future. Do you think Apple would ever do that? Make it possible to run Linux containers or something like that?
Yeah, I think they would. Would they do it in the WSL kind of way, where it's like a Linux environment? I don't think so. I think they would just add the support in the kernel.
Yeah?
Yeah, I feel that way.
I don't think Apple wants to touch anything GPL.
Well, they could also come out with their own proprietary solution, right?
I think they just will say, screw it. If you want it, you can use virtualization. And I think they've told you what their answer is. I don't think they have any interest in touching that stuff. It's just probably, because don't you think when they picture a developer, aren't they really picturing like an iOS developer using xCloud? They're not really picturing.
I think they're picturing a lot of web developers. It's a big part of their market.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.